why I believe Charles Oliveira will beat and potentially dominate Arman Tsarukyan in the rematch. Now, I doubt that after Charles Oliveira's performance, with it being mainly grappling, that they're going to give him Conor McGregor. I doubt that he's going to fight Ilia Topuria again. And while I think BSD may be a fun fight, I think the main option is Arman Tsarukyan. I think that Ilia Topuria, assuming he beats Justin Gaethje, I could see him vacating his belt again and moving up to 170 and them making the Islam Makhachev versus Ilia Topuria super fight. And because of that, Arman Tsarukyan versus Charles Oliveira, the 5-round rematch is for the vacant lightweight title sometime at the end of this year. And many times people say that Charles Oliveira is an underperformer. People talk about it with the Ilia fight, with the Islam fight, and I feel like a lot of those times those criticisms aren't really warranted because he's fighting the best of the best. With Ilia Topuria, I feel like Ilia just hits too hard. When Charles Oliveira tries to press you back, Ilia Topuria just had the power where Charles Oliveira got caught and he didn't get dropped. He immediately went out cold. And I just don't see Charles Oliveira really ever beating Ilia Topuria. And while he made a lot of mistakes in the Islam Makhachev fight, like throwing himself down on bottom, we didn't really have a lot of tape on Islam Makhachev and we didn't really know where his striking was, how good of a striker he really was. So while he did underperform, I give him a little bit of grace with both of those fights. But I think the Arman Tsarukyan performance of his, since he won the belt, since he went on that crazy win streak, that is easily the worst performance of his entire career. Despite him arguably winning, and I know people say, well, Arman Tsarukyan, he's one of the best wrestlers in the UFC. Even with Charles Oliveira's grappling, it's just going to be too much. And Arman Tsarukyan has a ton of power and he is pretty good on the feet. However, looking at Arman's past fights, I think his wrestling and overall grappling is super overrated, and I don't think Arman Tsarukyan beats Ilia Topuria, which is why I think he does deserve the title fight. But I don't really care that much to see it because I do think Ilia Topuria stuffs the takedowns. We saw he stuffed Charles Oliveira's takedowns and eventually knocks him out. And if we look at the Dan performance with Arman Tsarukyan, Dan actually stuffed the very first takedown. He was able to press Arman Tsarukyan against the cage. He ate clean shots from Arman Tsarukyan. He wasn't wobbled once. And I actually think Dan has a worse chin than Charles Oliveira. I think Charles Oliveira's chin is super underrated. Dan Hooker got the clinch and landed knees to the body. He almost got the back, but then he jumped for the submission where he actually was the one to take the fight to the ground, and because of that he got controlled for the rest of the round for about 2 minutes. And in the second round it was the same thing. Arman shoots a good takedown. Dan Hooker jump submission. He's stuck on his back and eventually gets submitted. Dan Hooker I actually think has underrated takedown defense. Against BSD, he mainly stuffed the takedowns, but he decided to engage in the wrestling, and because of that, he was on bottom and he got finished and lost the fight because of it. When he was arguably winning the first round, he hurt BSD to the body on the feet. So with that being said, why I think Arman Tsarukyan versus Charles Oliveira was by far his worst performance. If you look at that fight, Charles Oliveira 100% fought scared. I think that he was scared of the power because Arman Tsarukyan was coming off of that flatline KO against Beneil Dariush, where we did know that Beneil was chinny, but we didn't know he was that chinny and he was completely done. So it was kind of shocking. The first round was pretty simple because they both kicked at the same time. Arman falls over. Charles Oliveira jumps submission, nearly submits him, controls him, gets reversed. But because of the damage and the submission attempts early on, he was able to easily win the round. And even when he was off of his back, he was able to get up, take him to the fence and land a nasty elbow, clearly winning the first round. But after this round, it was pretty much all downhill for Charles Oliveira, and this is really when the mistakes started happening. He would pressure Arman Tsarukyan back, but outside of the one right hand that he landed, he just didn't throw anything. When yes, he was pressuring, but he had no volume with it. And Arman Tsarukyan would blitz, land a few shots, cause Charles Oliveira to back up, and then they would reset in the center and he would land a few more shots. This is one of the reasons why I was a little bit worried for Charles Oliveira against Max Holloway, even though I did end up picking Charles Oliveira. Arman eventually shoots a really nice takedown, but Charles Oliveira rolls with it, but he hangs on to the neck for way too long, makes a horrible mistake, and because of that, he gets taken down, controlled, and beaten up with elbows. One of the first times we really saw Charles Oliveira get beat up. He was way too complacent on his back, when I do think because of his grappling, he should be able to get up and really stuff the takedowns of Arman Tsarukyan. In the third, Charles Oliveira, his pressure was there, but his shot selection just wasn't wasn't. He was throwing flying knees and just stuff that really didn't make sense. There was also no kicks from Charles Oliveira in this fight. He threw a few teeps, but really no leg kicks and other stuff that I really think could have helped him. He was mainly just using his hands. He did have success stuffing takedowns early on. However, he just looked completely gassed midway through this round, and we know his cardio has massively improved. If we look at the Chandler second fight, where he was a little gassed in the 5th round, to this fight where he was completely fine throughout the entire fight. He's completely backed up against the cage and he's just doing nothing. We've really never seen this from Charles Oliveira, at least in the modern day. Arman shoots again, he jumps for the submission, gets controlled, but Arman makes the mistake of trying to take the back, trying to finish the fight, and because of that, in the scramble, he almost gets submitted. I think if Charles Oliveira actually threw when he pressured Arman Tsarukyan and wasn't constantly jumping for submission, I think he actually would have won this fight. I don't know if he would have won by finish, but I really think this could have been an easy 30-27, 29-28 decision for Charles Oliveira. Charles, he's not as chinny as people make him out to be just because he got knocked out by Ilya, and I doubt that Arman Tsarukyan KOs him. Arman said he made the mistake of going to the ground and wants to strike, which I actually do believe, but I actually see Charles Oliveira being the one to shoot the takedowns, take him against the fence. If he does take him down, I'm a little bit worried that he's going to get reversed and then Arman Tsarukyan is going to get control time, winning him some of the rounds. But at least on the feet, he's massively improved. I know people say that Charles Oliveira, just because he's 36, he lost to Ilia Topuria, he's not in his prime. This is easily the best version of Charles Oliveira we've ever seen. He's way more calculated. His grappling has massively improved, his wrestling, and on the feet, I think he's way better than he was before, even against guys like Poirier, like Gaethje. His power is super underrated. He hurt Max multiple times in the fight. And I think Charles Oliveira is going to be more confident in his grappling and his takedown defense, and he's not going to fear the power of Arman Tsarukyan. I think it's important to note that I don't think Arman has improved that much being the younger fighter. I think his performance against Charles, considering the skill gap, was way more impressive than his Dan Hooker performance. Since their first fight, Charles Oliveira has fought Gamrot, Ilia Topuria, Max Holloway, and Michael Chandler, while Arman has just had one fight. And despite being the older guy, I actually think he's improved more than Arman Tsarukyan, unless he just becomes washed in his next fight. He needs to be aggressive, but just not overly reckless. And I actually think it's more likely that he submits Arman Tsarukyan than Max Holloway, because Max Holloway was really just playing defense, just trying not to get submitted like Michael Chandler in the second fight. Where Arman, he's going to be scrambling, which is where Charles Oliveira gets his submissions. So I do think that Charles Oliveira should be able to beat Arman. I wouldn't pick him against Ilia Topuria or Makhachev, but I really think he beats everyone else. I even think he beats Volkanovski if Volk came up. I think he would beat BSD. So I would go with Charles Oliveira by either a decision, maybe a 48-47, 49-46, definitely should be more entertaining and a closer fight than the Holloway performance, or by a TKO, maybe mid-rounds, 3rd to 4th round. Let me know what you think, what you disagree with, who you think wins this fight, what you thought of the Charles Oliveira performance, and who you want to see him fight next. Let me know what you think.